If you like the idea of having a COO in your company, an operations manager, somebody to basically do all of the stuff that you just wish you didn't have to do, but you know you need to get done as a business owner, this episode is definitely worth listening to. Because I just had an amazing conversation with Tamara Munoz, who is the founder of Behind the Screens. Tamara helps small business owners to have that operational support they need, to get the absolute experts in to help you at a time when you can't probably afford or justify hiring your own COO or your own operations manager to come in and work 40 hours a week in your business. So if you are at that transition point where you know you need operational support at a high level, but you don't need to hire someone in full time and you need fractional support, listen to this episode as I talk through some of the challenges, the mindset issues that I've had, the decisions that I'm making right now in my business that align really truly with what Tamara does. And I was massively encouraged by this conversation, and it suddenly opened my eyes to think about, okay, I can see what my next steps should be in order to grow my business without losing control, without breaking the bank, and also to do it without breaking my lifestyle goals of living with more presence, purpose, and peace. Listen in and enjoy. So the question is this: how do entrepreneurs like us who don't have an endless supply of cash, how do we leverage the best apps, virtual assistants, automation tools, and systems to scale our businesses, increase our profits, and have more time to do what we love to do each day? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answer. My name's Dr. Steve Day, and this is Systemize Your Success. Hi, Tamara. Thank you so much for coming on the show. As with a lot of people I've interviewed recently, I'm really excited about this conversation. And we were just talking just before I came on about the fact that we're actually in similar industries. I think that's going to be, as often proved to be, the ground for a brilliant conversation that's going to be really valuable. So thank you very much for taking time out to come on today.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Cool. Well, I'd love to kick off. And, I've read all about your story and who you are. Obviously, in the intro, I've explained a little bit about what you do now, but I'd love to know just a 3-4 minute history of why you do what you do, like why are you passionate about this, and just a summary of who you work with and how you help them.
Yeah, absolutely. So my story began ages ago when I worked in corporate. I worked very high volume operations, fast paced. I was very young and I burned out very early on in my career. It was a very demanding job, but beyond that, it was observing all of my peers at the time, high rates of divorce. They were putting their kids to sleep via FaceTime. And I was young. I wasn't thinking about getting married or having kids, but the lifestyle just was not in congruence with what I wanted for my life in the future. And then I had a series of unfortunate events happen. My grandmother passed away. One of my stores had an electrical fire on Christmas Day, and I had to leave Christmas dinner with my family to go handle that. And that was kind of the tipping point for me, where it's just like, why am I burning myself out and sacrificing so much? It is important to be there for my family, to grieve, to navigate these phases of life for someone else's dream, and also at the expense of not only my happiness but also my health. I was really struggling at that time, health wise, and that was kind of the switch that flipped for me. I was like, okay, well, this is not where I want to be in 10 years. So I put my head down, and what were next steps? I've been in leadership and in operations from a very young age. I got pulled into this world at 19. So I, at that point, had almost a decade of work under my belt in scaling teams, building, training, running very high level, high volume operations with teams of hundreds. And how can I take all of that experience and do my own thing? So the easiest way was through virtual assisting. That was my easiest way out of just setting up small systems, supporting entrepreneurs. And I very quickly replaced my corporate income. And here in the States, you can't buy a house as an entrepreneur until you have about 3 years worth of tax returns. So I was not going to wait 3 years. So I kept my job and my business running for about 6 months. And once I had enough and I had the house, had the keys in my hand, I called my boss and I quit. And then I got married the next day. It all happened like in in a weekend. And the business grew very quickly. We grew very, very fast. I outgrew the virtual assisting world very, very fast. I found online business management, um, creating systems for small businesses, and then eventually grew into the role of fractional COO. So that's what I personally do inside of small businesses, while my agency behind the screens handles more of the online business management, systems creation, virtual assisting. We have an incredible team of 22 amazingly, like operationally forward humans who make it all happen. And it's been a lot of fun. It's been a trip, but it's been a lot of fun.
Cool. Awesome. I love that. And I think that many entrepreneurs have got these stories, probably all of us have got some sort of story, but like these pivotal moments where you can just think like that's when my entire mindset shifted. And
Yeah.
I read about those stories you mentioned just then, about your grandmother and about a colleague dying and the Christmas day and I have similar stories to why I just decided that I've got to for myself do this. I've got to figure out how do I build a business that truly can serve who I want to be, who the person who I want to become as well. And to do that, I needed to completely rethink about like what where I got value from in the world. So I'd love to know how you transitioned that. Like, how do I see my self worth is a better way of saying it? Because being in high flying and corporate and being like the whole mechanism behind that, the reward system where you get your dopamine fixes from on a day to day basis, like that, like leaving that in the same way of me leaving medicine and coming into the world of trying to be a family person and be there for my kids and like I say, not putting them to bed by FaceTime, actually being picking them up from school every day. All these amazing things I get to do now. But I had to shift myself first. So how did you overcome those challenges of moving from corporate identity to self-employed, doing your own thing, and actually how did you find that transition?
It's still very difficult. I'm 7 years in. It's an identity thing, especially being high performing. And I mean, you having a background in medicine, you're a high performer and a high achiever. Um, it's very difficult to move the mindset. It's like addiction replacement. So moving from being addicted to the corporate grind and 16-hour days and hitting those achievements and getting promotions and doing the thing to now it is how many people can we serve? How many services can I put out there? How can we do X, Y, and Z? How can I hit the next revenue milestone? And I have had to deprogram that because it took me up until about 2 years ago to realize like, oh, I'm just building what I was working in. I'm just building it myself and I'm working so much more. And I really tied my worth to, as a kid, to my grades and my achievements in school and then in corporate to my promotions and achievements there. And now it was tied more to my successes within business, the awards, the rooms I was in, the monetary part of it. So I've had to do a lot of deprogramming and nervous system regulation and rediscovering who I am as a person outside of my hustle. Because I default to that. That's where I feel safest. I'm the eldest daughter of immigrants. Like I have been working in one way or another since I was very young. So it has been a challenge for me to also be where my feet are and be present and not feel the guilt of when I'm working, I'm not with my kids and I feel guilt there. But when I'm with my kids, I'm not working and then I feel guilt there. There has been a lot of healing that has had to happen, a lot of untangling um, and detangling what I see as success and what feels like success and being very clear as to what it is that I'm actually chasing. Like, what does success actually look like for me? And not letting other people's ideas of success define it for me, which is also very difficult to do when you work online and you are inundated with messaging and even your peers telling you what they like and what they're achieving, and you're like, oh, I could do that better. I could totally handle that, and your plate's already overflowing. So it's been a lot of checking in on myself and a lot of mindset work, and it's a daily battle of what is enough, what does success look like today? When can I can work all day. I really enjoy what I do. I can easily work from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. That's not why I'm building this. So it's also keeping the reason why, which is supporting other people, but also supporting myself and having the freedom, financial freedom, time freedom to be present with my family and just keeping that at the forefront. But yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy when you spend your whole life defined by your achievements.
No, not at all. But yeah, good on you. And I've very similar struggles and the challenges and everything you just described. So I can really relate to all of that. And one of the big shifts for me was defining what my vision for the future was. And it used to be about, oh, I want this, my income so I could do that, or my revenue would be X, or whatever it was. There was always some sort of target. And then I worked with a coach for a couple of years. And after probably about 12 months, took me to actually genuinely start thinking differently, not just saying it, actually having transformed what my vision is. And my vision now is to live with more presence, purpose, and peace.
Mm.
And and having that now as my target means that does the decision I make today allow me to live with more presence, purpose, and peace? And that doesn't mean I can just not earn money, because actually, if I didn't earn money, my stress levels would go through the roof. I wouldn't have any peace. I wouldn't be able to be present because I'd be worrying about money. So it's getting that balance right, but having that guiding star, if you like, to actually say, look, is this business decision I'm making today, does it align with who I want to be in the future? So yeah, and I'm interested because one of the things just leading on from that, you talk about on your site and the work you do is about getting CEOs to have a human-centric business, and I love that, and I think that's very much aligned with what we're talking about here. But like we've just described, like this is tough. This is like changing the way people have been programmed, the conditioning they've had their entire life. So how do you help people to do that? What are your methods or the how do you overcome the challenges, the obstacles that other people face when they're trying to go on this path that we're on ourselves?
Yeah, there's this shift that needs to happen. And like we talked about, it's identity based. So it's working with people and finding safety in business. The reason why we hold on so tightly to everything and why we keep our hands in every little thing when we're starting out. And even in those first 5 years, so many entrepreneurs just refuse to let go. Even when they hire an assistant, when they hire a manager to handle something, they're still like a helicopter parent. They're still involved in everything, micromanaging. It's because they don't feel safe. They don't feel safe in what they have set up. They don't feel secure that the team member that they have hired is going to accomplish X, Y, and Z in the way that they want to handle it. So there's layers to that. First thing is, do you have a documented system in place? Has it been documented? Is it clear what the expectations of the tasks that you are delegating to these people are? From there, do you feel that you are getting the communication needed from this team member? So how do you know that they have completed this task without you having to check in on them personally? What are those markers? What does their communication with you look like? And then there's also the other side of things where it's just like, as you are letting go of these things, what shifts are you making personally? How are you filling your time? I feel like when business owners have a little bit too much time on their plates, they either create a whole second business, which happens. They'll either start a media side of the business where it's not just the podcast, it's now they have a podcast network and they have like three different things that they're handling, or they create a whole other service. So it's how are you filling that time and how are you staying in your role of CEO? So it's defining the job description of the business owner and letting them stay in their lane. So a lot of what I do as the COO, it's managing up and also managing the team, where I'm helping my business owners stay in their lane and create safety and prevent that friction that comes from delegating for the sake of delegation without delegating like full tasks, without there being a reason why things are being delegated, and then having the right people in the right roles as well. So role clarity and all that good stuff on the back end that needs to be super, super clear. So we have our Epic framework that we walk people through as we extract them. I call it CEO extraction. We got to like get you out of the trenches. And we walk them through this whole framework. It's a whole process because it's not just us setting up the systems and creating it for them. It's done for you because at this point, my business owners are at their max. They cannot work anymore. So we don't expect them to work anymore. We handle it for them, but it is a process. But it's also giving them time and their nervous system time to like regulate. So it does take months to get them to the point where they don't feel like they need to oversee every little thing. Everything is working without them. And there's ego detangling that happens there. We want to be needed. There is the business is your baby. So then it's like trusting someone else with your baby. And also keeping them feeling very valued in their own business, where it's like you're not being replaced. We're just helping you grow and having them feel very, very established in their role as CEO and visionary.
Yeah. As you're saying that, just a phrase came to mind is actually when I was speaking to one of my clients a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about where they come from, where they were now, and where we're going with them. And one of their expressions was, yeah, but I'm not really sure what I'm going to do now. It's like,
Yeah.
like they suddenly this identity crisis about, yeah, but that's what I've always done. So like, what is my role now? Like that,
Yeah.
maybe that's the person I need to pass on to you for the next level stuff. But yeah, it was just really interesting. This almost fear of, what do you mean that I don't have to do any of that anymore? It's just going to happen, like with evidence behind it as well. And it's just like, yeah, very, very interesting. One thing that I struggle with personally when I'm looking at getting help with this stuff is this idea of a CEO, because I currently don't see myself as a CEO because I'm a company of basically three people. Like I have purposely built a lean company. I've been bigger. I've been not huge, but 14 people at one time. And what that did for me was actually just create a lot of noise around what we were doing and a lot of management structures and a lot more issues that I wasn't seeing the direct value of. And I realized that actually, because of the way I worked and what we do, lean is actually probably the most efficient way. But there's a point now where I'm like, okay, we've taken it to the extreme of lean, but now I do want to shift my mindset, my role more into that visionary. And so, but I also, when I think about a CEO, I'm thinking of a company with a CEO, a COO, well, just a C-suite in general, maybe layers of management. And so I don't feel like a CEO, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so therefore I wouldn't look to approach a company like you. And is that right because of the size that we are, or is actually just that a wrong way of looking at the problem?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that it's wrong. I do think that it goes back to identity, where you are a CEO, you do have a legitimate business, it is successful. Just because it's lean and you don't have a massive team, it doesn't mean that it's not legitimate and that you can't benefit from having a fractional COO supporting you. And that's the reason why like I have job security and I was able to do the things that I'm doing. It's because it is fractional. You don't need someone full time. I truly do believe that unless you have a massive corporation bringing in multi-millions a year with a team of like 30 plus, if not more, you truly don't need someone sitting in that seat for 40 hours a week. That's just unnecessary. Um, but having that second brain supporting you in implementation so that you are fully in your visionary is invaluable and it helps you move so much faster. So the way that I describe it a lot, it's there was Walt Disney and then there was his brother Roy Disney. And Walt is the visionary. So he had the ideas, he was the idea man, he was the face, he was the heart of the operation. And then Roy handled all the logistics. So Walt had an idea. Roy's like, okay, cool. He's the one getting the contracts. He's the one that's hiring everyone. He's the one that's setting up the systems, having the conversations to make Walt's vision a reality. So that's kind of what the visionaries are, my Walt's, and we are the Roys. And we support in the implementation and integration. And I feel like businesses at any level can really benefit from that. But truly, businesses that are in that micro and small um, sector, that they benefit the most from it because they don't have the manpower to move mountains as quickly as more of like a mid-size and large company can. The resources are a lot more finite when you are a smaller company. So just having that second brain with the resources is really supportive because then that also opens up like your mind equity where like you can have so much more space to think and innovate and create partnerships and just do so much more that you really couldn't do when your mind was just caught up in the day-to-day grind of your business.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Let's have a chat. No, I think though genuinely, I think that's actually helped to define what that actually means because I think, and not just for myself, for people I work with a lot and clients and people I speak to all the time, is this shifting oneself, like the point of letting go, like so much of what I do. I mean, this is what I help people to do is how to, I was just talking before, is how to turn vision into operational flow. Like the actual mechanics of doing that, that is my bread and butter. That is like literally how I help people to change their lives, like on a day-to-day basis. So that for me isn't the challenge, but I see it in other people and it reflected back in me, or the other way around, is this, it's the mindset shift. It's understanding what also is available out there. Like you just said, like being able to tap into a resource of someone who's got your back, who's experienced, knowledgeable, who has seen this all before and doesn't get flat by it all. And when you go, yeah, but surely only I can do that. You know, that sort of that throwing at, which I know you have heard as many times as I have. And like we're able to actually see, okay, maybe there is a way to bridge this moment between like, because I in so many ways, I'm speaking personal because I think it's relevant to so many people, but like at the point now is like what I need to do is to hire someone who's really, really good, who's as good as me or better.
Mhm.
That is where I'm at now. I don't need another assistant. I can I'll automate AI the hell out of anything. And with AI now, it's assistants are necessary to a point until they can replace themselves by using cool tools. And like
Exactly.
that is my goal for my staff, my assistants is can you like systemize yourself out of your own job? Now you become super valuable to me.
Yeah.
I say this on a regular basis, but so that's okay for me. That's the operational stuff. This, what we're talking about now, sounds like actually could be the thing that would help me right now the most without me having to think about, oh my God, I've got to go and hire, a full-time or even a part-time COO or that level. And how do I even approach that? How do I even go about and hire somebody who I don't come from a corporate world. I come from a solopreneur property and medicine. Like the idea of me actually having to find, in effect, not a business partner, but like a partner in the business to help like be my second brain, that is a huge amount of barriers and blockages in there. Whereas what you've described makes a lot of sense. So thank you for that.
First, glad.
Cool. So thinking about that, so thinking about if you, whether it's myself or anybody else is coming towards you, and what is your advice at this point to someone like me who is sees there's a need, who sees like, okay, look, I get what you're saying. I get this will be a value, but like, what are my first steps? Like whether it's working with yourself directly, someone else similar, or actually trying to do this myself. Like, how do I actually break out of this point of being maybe I've started to believe it, but I'm not yet convinced it's going to work. What is your advice for the next mental stage in this journey?
Yeah, I think the first thing, the very, very first thing that you need to do is decide what you want out of this kind of partnership. So what is going to get off your plate if you were to enter into a partnership like this? And what do you want your day to day to look like once you do have that, fractional COO at your side? So what does that free you up to do? What does success look like for you in that kind of partnership? And then from there, you're better informed when you're going out to interview or to just even post. And then from there, start going through applications of who is this right person? Because like with everyone, each COO might bring their own strength. So it's very important that you are very well defined in what you want, like what the end goal is for this partnership, as well as who you're looking for in terms of like personality fit. I do think that's very important in this kind of partnership with the team members, not the team members, the clients that I work with, where I function as their COO. We talk daily. I am in their back pocket. We talk all day, every day. And there needs to be synergy. There needs to be, we don't need to be friends, just like in a professional setting. We don't need to be friends, but we need to respect each other. In this, it's that times 100, because in small businesses, like you go through so much in a day. You live like 3 lifetimes in a day in a small business because there's just so many moving pieces. Everyone is wearing multiple hats. You do need someone that is flexible. I will say that. I have found in my time working in this space that there's having boundaries and having scope of work and all that good stuff, and then there is like complete inflexibility. When you are working with small businesses, being flexible is a very important skill. because we do have to run lean. At the end of the day, we're running businesses, like we do need to make profit. And just because we have, the capital to hire XYZ doesn't mean that we should. If the team that we have and the tools that we have at our disposal and the AI that we have at this point in life, if we can optimize the hell out of that first and get as much as we can out of what we currently have, and then make decisions based off of, okay, we are fully optimized and we're nearing capacity. What's our next step? So just having someone that understands and is coming alongside you to work in that way and understands that there is scope of work. And then there's also flexibility in times of fast growth. When we're scaling rapidly, it's all hands on deck. We're doing what we need to do to get the business to the next point so then we can hire comfortably and we can scale it with intentionality. I think that's the biggest thing, because if not, you're going to end up with a team of 30 people. And like you mentioned, there's going to be overlapping roles. There's going to be miscommunications. It's going to be a lot of duplicate work, a lot of expenses that aren't necessary at that point.
Yeah, definitely. I think, going back to that experience of very quickly, so within 12 months, I think we had 14 people, and there was we didn't have the systems and the structure to support that. And we were making it up as we went along, and that caused huge amounts of inefficiencies as well. And so that's why I shrunk back down to be lean as well, and because it was more aligned with where I wanted to be with my life at that moment. Like I said, about actually creating the business not purely, but the primary reason for the business's existence is for the lifestyle it lends to me, and that did not work when I was trying to actually manage this very fastly growing team without, if I'd had a COO in the seat at that point who could have actually taken over some of that and actually rationalized some of those hiring decisions, and actually then realize, okay, we actually don't need that person, or I can manage that person, or whatever it is, that I think maybe would have worked out a lot better. But it was just me trying to basically wing it, and going too fast for my experience and my knowledge and my systems and my infrastructure, et cetera, et cetera. And didn't have funding or anything going on. It was all me driving it. So every time I hired, I had to generate the revenue to match that, or end up going down in terms of capital, and that's not a great place for business to be. So I can see that, like, in hindsight, going back, like this, if I'd had that conversation then, and then got somebody like yourselves on board, it would have been probably worked out differently. Or actually, you would have rationalized it. Steve, what are you doing? Like you said, stop trying to do everything, because that was the problem. As like, oh, I can do this for you. I can do this. I can become a VA agency. I can supply your services. I can do that, and did it all like literally in the space of a short amount of time. So yeah, hindsight's a great thing, isn't it? Cool. Thinking on about scaling, because I think one of the things as well that, like, I've actually moved away from using that word, because I used to use it a lot, and I realized actually that for me it doesn't actually resonate with my reasons now for building the business. I'm not saying that, like, in the same sentence. I'm not saying I don't want to scale. I don't want to grow more revenue. I'm not saying that, but I'm not scaling for the sake of scaling. I'm not simply saying that what's important to me is a revenue target, or to have a team of this big. And like you said before, that's the ego coming in. And I definitely used to think like that. I was proud that I had 4 businesses like set up, and it's like, actually now I have one business, I'm far less stressed, and far less accountancy fees as well. It's just simple things like this, and just less things to actually think about and work on. And it's those sort of like maturity things about, okay, why are you actually doing this? But this scaling thing is, again, one of these reasons why I actually spoke to someone similar business to yours. They did fractional COO stuff, so in some ways very similar. And like, one thing that kind of put me off is, like, they were saying that if a COO is going to come into a small business like me, I've got to be thinking about scaling. I've got to give them opportunity for growth, to allow them to be a part of something that is becoming something else in terms of size and revenue. And just because of your human-centric approach, and I know you've mentioned in stuff that I've read about scaling. I just want to know, what does scaling mean to you? What should it mean? And what is, in your mind, the right way to approach it? So you do attract great talent in, but not at the cost of something that's important to you.
Yeah. So scaling means what you make it mean. So it's very individual. For me, just operationally and in terms of business, there is no point in scaling top line if your bottom line isn't going with you. So for example, you can scale and make five, six, $8 million, and that's totally fine. But if your bottom line, now your revenue is taking a hit, and your profits are taking a hit, and that percentage starts to shrink because you are, in order to scale to that size, now you need to hire on so much more. You have way more tools. You need to hire on labor. For example, for my agency, we are labor dependent. So as I scale top line, I need to be so careful about my bottom line because for every person I hire, it's basically I need to sign 3 to 5 clients to make sure that the percentage of profit stays about the same. So there is that intentionality that needs to happen. So for me, scaling personally, it's not worth bringing in so much more in the front on the top line if I can't keep my bottom line in line, because I also don't want to do $1 to $7 million worth of work and then bring home like $6 after taxes and everything. It's not worth the time, the effort. And at that point, you're not even running a profitable business. You have like an expensive hobby. That's basically what it ends up being. And also, what do you want out of your life? So do you want to have an empire and run a multi-million dollar business and manage all the people? Or do you want to have what I would consider more of a lifestyle business that it keeps you and your family comfortable, you're setting yourself up for retirement, you feel joy and fulfillment with what you're doing, and you don't necessarily need to hit the ego driven millions, multi-millions. You're just running a very successful business, because we have defined success as I can pay my bills comfortably, I can save comfortably, we go on various vacations, I'm off of my computer by 4, my weekends are off, my evenings are off. And it's about what you define as success. And then we can scale to that. So for you, if it's, I'm prioritizing my peace over everything else and my presence over everything else, great. Amazing. So let's look at the black and white. What do you need to bring home so that your peace isn't disturbed when the business is going through the ups and downs of the ebbs and flows of business? Great. What does that look like operationally? What do we need to execute? What does that top line number look like? And then from there, we can decide, great. So this is what you're taking home. Amazing. We hit our success goal. Now, if we want to continue scaling in terms of like bringing in more money top line, what do those triggers look like on the bottom line? So like every single time that we bring in an extra $100,000 up front, how does that impact our bottom line? And also, how does that impact your piece? So if we have fully extracted you from your business, realistically, it shouldn't impact your piece. Like that's kind of where we want to hit, where we take our business owners out of the operation so much that they're just functioning in their role, and what is happening monetarily in the business, regardless of how fast and how big we grow, it doesn't really impact them too much. Then we can do whatever we want and scale as quickly as we want monetarily. But it's because you're removed, right? Like your day to day is the same. You're focused on vision, your revenue acquisition, partnerships, things of that nature, but you have someone else running the operation and other people executing. So it's very personalized. I do think that trying to give every business that cookie cutter, this is what scaling is, like that's where we come across a lot of friction and a lot of mistakes are made, and where businesses end up in the red really quickly, because it's not just about revenue. Like there's just so many things taken into consideration. And as an entrepreneur, you get to do whatever you want and you get to define success and you make your own rules, which is amazing. It's difficult, but it's amazing that we get to do that. And for that, we have to be, as an operational partner, I had to be very conscious and keep that in mind. Where some of my clients want the notoriety and Inc. 5,000 and 30 under 30, and that's great. And then I have other clients who's just like, hey, I just want to pay my bills. I want to stay at home with my kids. I have older clients who's just like, I just want to make enough money to like travel comfortably, and great. We'll do that. And that's what we're hitting. Those are the goals that we're hitting.
Wonderful answer. Absolutely brilliant. And I think that, yeah, like with so many things, it's about the planning and about the work that goes ahead of the execution. That means that when you do execute, you get to the result you actually want. Simple
Yeah.
as that, really. So awesome. Tamara, thank you so much for coming on today. I'm going to draw it to close after that brilliant answer, because I think it just really summed up everything that people should be thinking about before going into something like this, and I think really, really nicely illustrated the kind of person you are and the kind of companies that you help people build. So wonderful. But before you do go, I have one final question for you. The name of this podcast is Systemize Your Success, but what does success mean to you and why?
Me personally, like you, it means presence and peace. I have found that I found myself saying that I thrived in chaos for a very long time. And come to find out that was coming from a very unhealed part of me, where the chaos drowned the noise of the things I was trying to avoid, whether it's the relationships that I was building or the responsibility that I had. So as I've grown and matured, and just even in my entrepreneurial journey, it has truly become about finding peace and helping others find peace as well. I think that's why it's such a big part of what I do, is to help others find safety in their business so that they can let go. And also presence. I have three young kids. I have three kids, yeah, under five, so five and under. I am in the trenches of that. And as my daughter is my oldest, and as I'm watching her grow, it goes by so quick. And that gives me a lot of anxiety in that I don't want to miss this. I have such an incredible opportunity to be able to be present for all the phases of their childhood. And I look back at my childhood, it went by so quickly. Like, it was just, I blinked and then I was out of the house. And knowing that that's what's happening here, it's very important for me to be fully present with them. I come from a family of immigrants, so my parents worked 6 days a week, 12-hour days, and I'm so grateful for everything that they did. And also, they weren't physically present there a lot because they had to work so much. And I do think that it would be a disservice to all of their sacrifice for me to then just build that same life for myself. It's, part of honoring them as well, and honoring what they've done for me my entire life. It's being able to then be present and give that to my kids, and heal that in this next generation of just having physically and mentally, that's a big part of it, mentally present parents.
Again, love the answer. Thank you very much indeed. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on. I've absolutely loved this conversation. So thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you. I appreciate you. It's great speaking to you and just talking about all my favorite things. This is all so fun for me.
Thank you so much.